Azimio leader Raila Odinga has termed the recently released National Dialogue report as ultimately imperfect and unfinished for failing to address the high cost of living in the country. Now, he spoke after deliberating on the report with opposition members of parliament at a special parliamentary group meeting held right here in the capital. He has, however, said that the report is a good start, commending some of its recommendations. And as KTN's political affairs reporter David Mudhoka now explains, Raila is calling for a referendum so that Kenyans can have the final say on those recommendations.
3 days after the National Dialogue Committee unveiled its report, opposition leader Raila Odinga on Wednesday finally broke his silence regarding the document. Speaking after leading a parliamentary group meeting held in Nairobi to discuss the report and eventually take a position on it, Raila poked holes on the report for specifically failing to address the runaway cost of living in the country.
We made what we believed were reasonable proposals on how to address the rising cost of living. But the government side flatly refused, terming it their exclusive business and further arguing that they got the mandate of Kenyans to execute their Kenya Kwanza economic agenda. The document the team has come up with is ultimately imperfect and unfinished, but it is a good beginning.
Raila maintained that the cost of living issue cannot be brushed aside, hinting at a return of the opposition's consultative meetings with members of the public to raise the alarm on the cost of living crisis.
The other ways will include, but will not be limited to, consultations with the people. At all times, we will retain the right to call on the people to take steps that we deem necessary to force the government to lower the cost of living.
Raila further called for a national referendum on the recommendations of the National Dialogue report, insisting that Kenyans should have the final say of the NADCO report.
The people of Kenya have to have their say by way of a referendum. Besides, it is a constitutional requirement that such significant restructuring of government must go through a referendum to avoid the mischief that may be played by some people going to court.
The opposition leader spoke at a time when there are reports of divisions within the opposition over whether to endorse or reject the National Dialogue report. Raila, who himself was non-committal, only saying that the report may be unfinished but a good start, dismissed the reports of a split within Azimio.
Honorable Eugene Wamalwa was here earlier on in the meeting of the summit. He only has had to leave because he had some pressing matter to deal with. But he approved the report as presented by the team. He had not been in the country when this report was being signed, but he's going to append his signature on the report. Honorable Martha Karua is out of the country. We talked to her earlier on today. She's in Hargeisa in Somaliland, but she's traveling and will be back around 1 a.m. this morning. So she has no issue at all.
Wednesday's parliamentary group meeting was also attended by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who is a co-chair in the National Dialogue Committee, former presidential candidate George Wajakoya, and former governors Nderitu Muriithi and Mwangi wa Iria. While the opposition may not have supported the entire National Dialogue report, opposition leader Raila Odinga has on Wednesday endorsed most of its recommendations. Raila is, however, saying that the opposition will not give up until the government fully addresses the cost of living issue affecting most of Kenyans in the country. David Mudhoka, KTN News at Karen, Nairobi.
All right, some of the leaders allied to Azimio la Umoja are actually saying that they will not sign